What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Check the Kick podcast, found on Sherdog.com. I have another, he's back again, special guest, Jay Pettry. How's it going, man?
I feel like I was going to do a Backstreet Back reference, and I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to talk fights with you. When a big weekend of fights happen, it's good to kind of sometimes have an outlet, to have we had UFC, we had Bellator, we had Ryzen, we had BKFC, where Chris Camozzi was this close to winning a world title in 2023. We had all kinds of things happening. So it's good to be able to kind of just take all of the madness that's up here and expel it onto the airwaves and hope that our devoted listeners can kind of sort it out and sift through the duds.
It's like, those possession exorcist movies where we've gotten all these demons over the weekend with all this crazy stuff, and then we just got to get it out. We didn't talk about BKFC. I didn't catch it, but what can you give us a quick, just real quick kind of, tell us what happened there if you caught it?
Oh yeah, I watched the whole thing because I'm a maniac, and apparently I for some reason watch every fight that ever seems to happen these days. I can't help myself there. All I'll really say is that, it was an interesting fight card, a lot of knockouts, but that's BKFC. They have a statistically higher knockout rate, a lot of blood, but again, BKFC, so I'm preaching to the choir. It was BKFC 50. The co-main event was Josh Copeland, so garner your expectations and be like, ooh, he's fighting again. Wasn't he arrested for domestic violence and he's still allowed to hit people? I don't know how I feel about that. And the main event was Chris Camozzi fighting for a championship of the cruiserweight belt at 205 pounds. And let me tell you, I wasn't scoring it live, but Chris Camozzi almost pulled it off against Lorenzo Hunt. It was BKFC. It's exactly what you sign up for. It's the kind of thing like I'm starting to equate it to one championship has been running this series for like 30 or so weeks now, called Friday Fights. We're in Lumpini Stadium in Bangkok, Thailand, which is, the Muay Thai Mecca. One has been running these mostly Muay Thai with a little bit of MMA mixed in shows where the Muay Thai is all taking place in a ring with 4-ounce MMA gloves. And let me tell you, brother, doesn't matter who's fighting. I'm not a diehard Muay Thai guy. I know the names, I know the fighters, but it's not, I couldn't be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that this guy from Fairtex Gym is here. Whatever. Doesn't matter. You flip it on at some time, and there's going to be a crazy fight. So that's what BKFC is like. When something's going to happen, and something violent is going to take place. And it's if you want, I don't care who's going to win. I just want the sweet violence. That's what you do.
Lorenzo Hunt has been kind of making a name for himself in BKFC, and I like that they give those people that type of platform to transition from, the gutter of MMA and other places.
Like a 3-5 fighter. This is a guy who on his post-fight interview said he was passed up by the UFC. I'm like, man, yeah, and I was passed up by the UFC, too. Just everybody who doesn't work for the UFC, therefore, was passed up by the UFC. It's not, you weren't passed up.
You weren't within grabbing distance, but now you've got a platform. You're making more coin than you would have probably ever made in the UFC, because you would have probably just got a couple shit kickings and then just left. And then this is super off the cuff because we didn't talk about this, but there was so much that happened. Like the Rodtang Superlek fight.
That was dope. I don't know. Did you sit down and watch that thing? Okay.
Oh yeah.
When so-called super fights happen, sometimes they live up to the hype, and sometimes the hype kind of overwhelms it, and you go, oh, okay. Like, for instance, The Fight, Nasukawa and Takeru. It was just like, okay, all right. But this, it left me wanting more. And part of it was because Rodtang missed weight by 5 pounds. Rodtang didn't miss weight. Rodtang failed to make weight by 5 pounds. Therefore, it was a non-title fight, and it was a 3-round encounter. I forget if it was supposed to be 5 anyway. But I wanted 5 rounds, and I want to see this again. It was exactly the kind of all action, back and forth, blood and guts, knockdown, big cut, huge moments, excitement that you want. How did you feel about that fight?
Dude, like, so I wanted to talk about this. I think when ONE FC did that mixed rules bout with Demetrius Johnson and Rodtang, I think that was the most brilliant thing for them to do in that company, because now all these people like, oh, Rodtang's a bad mother effer. Like, we have to watch Rodtang. And then like, oh, who's this guy that Rodtang's fighting? Superlek. He seems pretty cool. And it just kind of, it starts turning on lights. It's like if you're walking down a dark hallway and you just turn one more light on. And now all these MMA fans are starting to be tiered toward and pushed toward their product of Muay Thai in 4-ounce gloves. And that like step in elbow straight up the middle that Rodtang blasted Superlek with, I mean, it looked like Superlek got hit in the head with the hatchet. We're going to talk about Eblen in a little bit, but 2 just insane eyebrow and forehead explosions this weekend. And like those Muay Thai dudes, they have like 150 to 250 professional fights. And
like for the mid-tier guys, like how many fights does Rodtang have? I'm going to just
260.
Just off the 260?
I'm just guessing.
Okay. I don't have the numbers in front of me. I just pulled up a new tab. I'm going to say 340 just to do it. I'm just guessing. This is just guessing. I'm going to look it up on our best pals at Wikipedia. And I say that knowing that he's about, I think he's like 26 or 27. So you figure that'd be like, no way, there's no way. 324 professional kickboxing and Muay Thai fights.
And Superlek?
26 years old. Rodtang. Superlek Cat 169. And yeah, he's also 27. He's, a young gun. This is the kind of thing that, yeah, these guys are going to get ludicrous amounts of fights. And my favorite thing about Muay Thai, well, there's a lot of great things about Muay Thai. You lose. So friggin' what? Some of the best guys to ever do it in Muay Thai have like 40 or 50 losses. No big deal, because I won 350,
Sure.
The guys
look at John Wayne Parr.
Travis, yeah, exactly. You guys make Travis Fulton look like a tomato can nobody.
What's super they're just like, I mean, they're not like Jay Ellis, but it's insane because these dudes are so young. They have so many fights and like they still bring it. And MMA fighters, like you can tell there are a ton of MMA fighters that they'll get 25 fights in their career and they're like, I hate this.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't like this.
They don't like it anymore. They not to kind of bash anybody, but you can see that there's the cliff and you're like, oh, okay, because coupled with physical deterioration and mental, I don't want to do this, it's a nosedive. Whereas you see Sam A is fighting and he's like 39. I think he finally just decided, okay, I'm going to start slowing down. He fought in like June. Dude has 430 fights.
And the amount of, and it's insane too, because like, I mean, especially Muay Thai in 4-ounce gloves, just the way that 4-ounce gloves are made, like you're even punches, you're going to get cut a ton, but like the elbows, like there are dudes like, like Haggerty, where like his whole game is like an elbow based game.
Yep.
It's super cool. Like Superlek is a kicking type guy and Rodtang is more of a kind of walk forward pressure boxing with kicks type of Muay Thai striker. So it's not like everyone, if you've never watched this, if you're listening to this, like you really, really should, because it's not like, oh, I'm just watching kickboxing where everybody has a very similar technique. Even though it's called Muay Thai, there are so many different styles within the style of Muay Thai, all different types of striking. You see clinch guys that, just tear people up with knees, kickers, boxers.
There are guys, and I think Joe Nottawa, Smoking Joe, he fought for Lion Fight, so he was kind of a prominent name for a little while. One of his best strategies was, I'm going to kick you in the upper chest area, and you're going to block it. And I'm okay with that, because I'm going to kick you there 70 more times until your arms start going numb, and then I'm going to take you up top. like just magical Muay Thai that I'm happy we're talking about this, even though this is totally unplanned.
Yeah.
4-ounce Muay Thai is a whole different beast. And I drop bombs on one championship all the time. Sometimes they're deserved, other times they're deserved. But 4-ounce Muay Thai, yeah, that's the good. As former Sherdog staffer and current Sportsnaut podcaster Ant Walker, Muay Thai and little gloves. Oh yeah.
So like the way I'll describe 4-ounce and Muay Thai gloves is just like
there's nowhere to hide.
And it's like, you know, the fights this past weekend, the first 2 fights, we had the Montserrat versus Vidal fight, and then the Hannah Goldie versus Mizuki. Like those types of fights don't exist in 4-ounce Muay Thai. It's like eating a perfectly cooked ribeye over and over again. Where like it's gonna always be good. It's just always good, you know. So I'm stoked we talked about this because this happened on like Friday in the morning.
Yep. Every well, not every,
That's
because
awesome.
I think they're taking time off. It's basically been every Friday at 8:30 p.m. on the East Coast on the One Championship YouTube. I don't work for One Championship. Goodness, no, I don't. You know, I don't work for One Championship. But I will tell people about these set of fights because you're going to get
free
good stuff. Yeah, right on YouTube.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
So we'll move on here. We're going to go ahead and move on to probably the most important fight of the weekend that did not happen in the UFC. Johnny Eblen kind of having a slower pace fight, but then in the end, shit kicking Fabian Edwards. Johnny Eblen's pretty good, man.
Johnny Eblen's pretty good, man. Like it's the kind of situation where obviously big fish in a small pond, and Johnny Eblen, I mean, he's 14-0, but you look at his resume and it falls apart. Very like when one of his best 4 wins is John Salter. I love John Salter. Been watching him for a surprisingly long time. And he's just the kind of guy who was just blood and guts and craziness, because people forget John Salter used to be in the UFC back in like 2010. This is a guy who's been around for a long time. But when that's one of your best accomplishments, it's hard to get hyped about you. But then you watch Johnny Eblen and what he's able to do to the guys that he fights. I mean, Gegard Mousasi, one of his Achilles heels has always been his get-up game. He has pretty good defensive wrestling, but if you manage to put him on his back and kind of put him flat on his back, he doesn't, I don't want to say he doesn't know what to do, but he doesn't seem to have the tools in his arsenal. I don't know exactly what it is, but we've seen it happen many times in his career. I mean, even dating back all the way to when he fought King Mo. Yes, I thought he beat King Mo off his back when he just absolutely destroyed King Mo with, elbows and stuff off his back. But he's susceptible to that. So we go, okay, all right, fine. Anatoly Tokov is, he's a guy who deserves more credit than he gets. But at the same time, you go, wow, he's got over 30 wins. But when, and I'm going to do this again, when Arbi Aguyev, who is also known as guy who sends fake fights to Sherdog Fight Finder, is one of your best wins, his strength of schedule wasn't there. Fabian Edwards is good. Like he lost to Austin Vanderford, and that stings because, I don't think he's even fighting anymore. I mean, I'm not trying to pick apart everybody's roster, but apparently I'm picking apart everybody's record. Fabian Edwards is a good, well-rounded fighter, and Eblen was competitive. First 2 rounds, Big John scored them both for Eblen. I wasn't scoring. I watched it today, as in Sunday instead of Saturday live, because I was working in the UFC. I might have given the second round to Edwards. I don't know. It doesn't matter because he got the finish, but he turned it on. Eblen turned it on in a way that impressed me. That moment of I clipped him, I got him, I'm going to put him out was a very fast, effective finishing sequence. I don't know about you, but to me, that was the best part of what Eblen did. It was the finishing sequence and the wherewithal to not just charge into the up kicks, but get in there and put him away like that.
It's funny. This reminded me of another Bellator fight, kind of where Yoel Romero just did the same thing to Melvin Manhoef with those, like, you see the elbows, boom, 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 and they're just gone.
He finally turned it on. That's right. That's actually a decent enough analogy in that he was cruising, going here, fine, and then
the second he took
it's go time.
And the only thing I didn't like is that it took him to get hit by one elbow from Edwards and get a giant gash on his face to realize, fuck, this fight could be stopped by the doctors. And like, if you see the cut, like, and obviously when they
here to here. No, wait, it was right here in the middle to about here.
5 inches.
It was an enormous cut.
And it's wide. Like, it looked like HoboCop when HoboCop had the giant, like, remember HoboCop's eyebrow blew up and you could see like the nerves and like the vein. It was bad.
So Johnny, a Marvin Eastman reference, but I'll take it. Yeah, it was gnarly.
He needs to a different place at a different time. That fight could have potentially been stopped, and clearly Eblen's the better fighter over Fabian Edwards. And you'd hate to hand someone a belt like that, but he needs to be able to turn that. Like, when he went for it, anytime he went for it in this fight, like, he had success. What, in the first round, Edwards defended like one takedown. He had a really deep, low double, and I thought he was going to get it. But Fabian Edwards and his brother, that whole camp has kind of turned them into pretty damn good defensive wrestlers. Yeah. But he's clearly that much better than dudes. Like, when he just let his hands fly, clipped Edwards right away, clearly, was the more powerful, impactful puncher. And he's a great wrestler. He just, it sucks that he had to take that much damage to kind of have to go for it.
I'm obviously in no place to question how he did it, because at the end of the day, he recorded a 3rd round knockout and defended his middleweight title against, a rightful challenger. I can't take away from that. But I'm also with you in that he could have done this sooner, it seems. Like, yes, Edwards is a very, very defensively sound kind of fighter, but it seems like it's like the Dorothy, you've had it within you all along kind of situation where Eblen could have. It's like Donald Cerrone, I guess, when he had his moments where he could suddenly turn on the Tekken combo and go bang, 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 head kick and just absolutely destroy Rick Story. He can do that every fight, but he doesn't. And he admitted a long time ago it was a mental thing. I don't know. I mean, he's 14-0, and I don't know if there have been many close fights. God, I feel like I'm nitpicking here, because to say he could be more dominant. Okay, he's still winning. Yeah. He's smart. Like Mike Brown is coaching him. What the hell am I going to say that's a better, more intelligent breakdown or approach than what Mike Brown can do? So what am I doing here?
He probably wouldn't be so, I don't want to say lackadaisical, but he probably would be even more imposing if he had just like 1 or 2 losses, where he knows, like, okay, for me to win these fights, like, I'm better than these dudes. I need to go stomp these dudes. Like, let me just go out there and put my foot on the gas and just go. But since he's never had really faced tons, like, the most adversity he's really, really faced was taking that elbow. And the elbow wasn't, it's a concussive blow, but he wasn't like, it was just a big cut. Yeah,
it wasn't like, it wasn't rocked or hurt or on rubber legs or anything. He just had a big hole in his head.
And I'm sure his corner was like, hey, this is bad. Let's go out there and not make this fight happen anymore.
That actually might counteract my own argument, because he and team said, hey, man, you have a hole in your head that I could put my fingers into. You need to finish this fight now or we're going to be in trouble. Like John Jones against Chael Sonnen. Your toe is this way. If you don't put him away right now, this fight is going to be stopped. And he did. And he almost beat the undefeated Chael Sonnen. Life finds a way.
You just in MMA at the highest level, and I'm gonna call Bellator the highest level because it's middleweight. And there's really not is there really much of a if you take Johnny Eblen and chuck him into the UFC, I think he could do pretty well.
I think so too.
And do I think he could be the champ? I don't know. But he's good. You just can't let dudes hang around when you're fighting for, belts in a high level organization. And compared to the rest of MMA, yes, Bellator it's not UFC, but it's a high level organization. Either way, he did retain. So we're kind of just he's undefeated. Leon Edwards, we'll talk about this real quick. Leon Edwards went after him. And somebody on social media was commenting, Leon Edwards is on a 12-fight win streak. He doesn't want anything or Johnny Eblen doesn't want anything with Leon Edwards. And I was like, well, Johnny Eblen's on a 14-fight win streak and he's never lost. I didn't respond, but that's my, but I'm just saying, it's different.
Leon Edwards
it's different.
Just Kamaru Usman in the head and he just beat, it's
be his brother.
Yeah, he has a reason. I think if Leon and Johnny Eblen fought, I think it'd be a lot closer than it wouldn't be one of those weight classes exist for a reason type fights. Sure. I think that Edwards would be a full frame 185er, but I can't imagine that would happen. We're talking a game theory here. Would be okay, the Bellator has to fall apart, and Eblen has to go to the UFC and win enough to be prominent to where champion Leon Edwards has to challenge him, but champion Leon Edwards has to still be, it's fun. But we're just kind of pulling at threads here to say that Eblen didn't look, could have done better. Fine, whatever. But what is kind of concerning, and again, this is not to talk down on any particular fighter, but look at the top 10 in the Bellator rankings. Who is he going to face that people will be more impressed by than a Fabian Edwards? I love Aaron Jeffrey because the mullet is magical. And he's a good fighter. He's been around and stuff like that. But he's the next in line. Are you going to be yes, I can't wait to see Eblen versus Jeffrey. And Jeffrey won his last fight. It's not like it's a big, oh my gosh, this is the fight to make. So what can he do? It's Bellator. There's a hard ceiling, I think.
And everybody's he wants to go to the UFC, and he's talked about moving to the UFC potentially and being if you talk about being the best in the world and you're a fighter outside of the UFC, number one, you're just saying that, to get media attention, and number two, damn well that the best, to be the best, you actually have to go fight in the UFC. And I'm sure he's aware of that. I don't, but if you're Johnny Eblen, do you go to the UFC and fight a dude like Jared Cannonier for less money probably, or equal money? Or do you fight Aaron Jeffries in Bellator for a title for equal money? You fight Aaron Jeffries in Bellator for equal money.
Neither. We're going to operate in the assumption that Bellator is going to be just continuing along to its Bellatoring. I think while Bellator is sorting out a middleweight contender, the next middleweight challenger, this could be your opportunity to go up to 205 and fight. Oh God, I'm saying it. Yoel Romero, former middleweight. Test your trade against a big guy like that, a top 5 guy.
I think they're friends, though.
Maybe, but are they?
ATT.
Oh, yeah. Well,
and he's Dustin Poirier was in his corner, and
15 different sections of ATT. Well, then fine, go fight Phil Davis. That's ooh boy, that'd be a real gnarly.
Corey Anderson.
Yeah, fine.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, that'd be fine to test yourself because then that's how you stand out.
Yeah.
You're right. Right now, because of situational matchups and because of who they've ended up fighting, and because Bellator's light heavyweight division had been made up of, top UFC guys, Ryan Bader at the time, Corey Anderson, Phil Davis, all top-ranked UFC fighters that went to Bellator, Vadim Nemkov is the number one light heavyweight in the world, give or take. So it's possible. And it stinks for him, for Eblen, now that Nemkov is going to be moving up to heavyweight, so we can't test that one.
That would be the one to do. Like, he should just be petitioning to fight for a 205-pound title in Bellator, and like he probably has a good chance. He's definitely like he's got a 75-inch reach, and he's 6'1". But like,
it's like an inch or two shorter than Strickland, so they're evenly matched guys there.
Yeah, and when you 205 and 185, like if you're actually good at MMA, that can supersede a lot of things. Just because
Romero, he's a top 5 205er because he just felt like going, yeah, I'm going to not cut as much weight anymore,
and just go punch the shit out of people really fast. That was really fun though. Like shout out to Bellator for doing that card at that time of the day in that part of the world. Some weird stuff happened on that card. We're going to talk about probably more important things. So we'll move on. Gamrot gets the win over Rafael Fiziev via how did you end up calling it for Sherdog?
We listed as a knee injury. We're not doctors, so we don't diagnose exactly what happened. So in the absence of really clear footage or what have you, we do like a tihia leg injury. But we can see at the time of the slow-mo zoomed in on Fiziev's knee to see, oh, look at those ligaments just popping like overtuned guitar strings, like that knee injury. It was a very tough situation. Did you have Fiziev winning the first round?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, as did I. I know you did, but I'm asking for the audience, not for me knowing.
Dr. Albasi, David Albasi, do you follow him? He's like the UFC doctor.
I know him, but I don't follow him. But
you should follow him on social media because he'll post like a lot of injuries and from what he sees, and he'll explain it. And it's like, And it's like, this guy's a real cage side trauma doctor. He's probably right. So he had he like still shot and zoomed up on Fiziev's knee, and he like showed where it split, and he circled it, and he gets like an ACL tear. He goes, that's a clear ACL tear. This sucks. Is
6 months, 9 months off the table on the shelf at least. That sucks.
I said on the recap show last night with Keith, I was like, it's one of his CLs probably tore just because his knee, like the way that it churned and bent, like it wasn't with his kicking leg either. For anyone that didn't really see it, his planted leg, which is like potentially even worse. The way that he kicks and as fast as he does stuff, like. Also, too, when he's not very old, but he does have a lot of kickboxing history. He was also a coach at Tiger Muay Thai. Like, when you start obtaining injuries like that at this stage of the game, like, I'm concerned about his career trajectory.
It's funny you say that, because that kind of entered into my mind, because I thought he's 30 years old, so he still has plenty of time left. But this is an injury that, I don't know what it is. We still don't, as of Sunday, know exactly what went. I'm sure he's going to get his tests on Monday or Tuesday or something. But 6 to 9 months off, recoup time, learning how to walk again. It's kind of it's a different kind of animal. Can change certain fighters. Can change the way they approach it. It's not a one-to-one thing, but pitchers, just like starting pitchers, will get the Tommy John surgery, and sometimes they just won't quite come back the same. They can't throw as fast. They don't have control like they do, and that a ligament tear on his left knee. I mean, that I hope. I think it was Keith on the Sherdog recap show that said, I hope it's a meniscus tear. And I thought, man, I don't want to wish any ill on the guy, but yeah, I kind of did too, because that is a less severe injury.
You can rehab that.
I do think that Gamrot could have turned it on. I thought that he was the tail end of the first round kind of showed me how it could turn into. But that's still all speculation, because one good shot, one good punch or kick, and suddenly Gamrot's not, his game plan is different. So we can't really know how it would have played out otherwise. But that has never stopped us from from an injury win making a fighter move up in rank, right? Like think of like Tom Aspinall blowing his knee out against Curtis Blades. Well, it was a 14-second freak injury, but Curtis Blades is now above him because he has a TKO win over him, right?
Yeah, like, and you kind of the rankings, they have to be like a meritocracy. Like you have to, who wins and who loses matters regardless of how the outcome came about. Like we're not going to talk about this fight, but Malkoun and Brundage, if they were next to each other in the rankings, like, and one dude wins and the other dude loses, like you probably can swap them. Obviously Malkoun is probably much higher ranked than Brundage, but I'm just using that as an example. Gamrot, if you look at his record, you were kind of poking through Eblen's record, and I think you could really, there's an argument to do the same for Gamrot too. Like his wins are wins, you know, and his wins are close. His losses are pretty close too, besides the Dariush loss. Yeah. He's a guy that's really, especially in this division at 155, like usually you have to win a bunch of fights like Charles Oliveira won fights, or the way that Islam Makhachev won fights, or the way Khabib won fights, or the way Gaethje won fights, or Dustin Poirier. Like you have to go shit kick a bunch of dudes like in super dominant, impressive fashion on your way up to the top. And like Gamrot is just climbing. Like, have you ever been on an escalator as a kid where it's going down, but you're trying to climb up? So like you're gaining ground. Yeah. You're gaining ground, but like you know, and that's kind of like what Gamrot's doing on his way to the title. Like he's going upward. Like these.
I mean, that's a pretty apt comparison because it isn't you know, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, because if through no fault of his own, the Fiziev situation, Jalen Turner is a really tough out, and that was a very close fight. The Dariush fight was not close. The Sarukian fight was very close. It was also one of the best grappling fights that anybody can ever see. So he has the skills, he has the talent. Obviously, for those that don't know, so it's not obviously, Gamrot came up through KSW, the major Polish promotion. That it's kind of like a party. It's a celebration. It's a celebration of combat. Like the weigh-ins, there's like a live band and people are having a blast. It's a gala event. And he won titles in 2 divisions when he was in there. Had issues with Norman Park, but you can poke holes in his resume when you go, okay, fine. You know, the Norman Park thing. Wasn't Norman Park a guy who was in the UFC and then he wasn't anymore because he lost 3 or 4 or something like that? You know, that's when your better wins. That's tough. But like Eblen, his teammate, Mateusz Gamrot, is showing the skills that I like to see. In this fight, we got to see some of them. The Sarukian fight, we got to see a full spread of what he can bring to the table. And I like it, but it's something that either Ben Duffy or Keith Schillen say frequently. I don't even know who to attribute it to anymore. If I'm picking one fighter to be a champion against the field of everybody else, I'll always pick the field because of how difficult it is to become a champion. You know, things have to roll out a certain way to win a title and to get a title shot. Crazy things happen. I mean, Yair Rodriguez fought for an interim title off of 1 win that was an injury stoppage for Brian Ortega on his shoulder, and he got a title shot. So crazy things happen, and it's very difficult to become champion. But in terms of raw skills, as long as Mateusz Gamrot doesn't run into Islam Makhachev, he could theoretically be champion. In theory.
Yeah. And, you know, his game, the only critique I have about his game, and I have the exact same critique about Bryce Mitchell's game, and we're going to transition to that real quick, is he needs to, and I would love, like, Gamrot has clearly made a ton of improvements at ATT, but he needs to go to, like, the closest thing to Dagestan is AKA, and he needs to learn like a wrist riding, controlling, punishing, like hunting submissions or hunting ground and pound game. Like that's something he really needs to incorporate into his grappling, because like the dude is, when it comes to chain wrestling, like he's not even a great chain wrestler. Like he's good at it because he just fucking does it. Like
because he can do it. And he has the gas tank to keep doing it.
It's like a Colby Covington style, like just like he'll, and I mean ATT. I mean Covington's not there anymore, but like they will allow. What's cool about ATT is like, what are you good at? Okay, we're gonna we're gonna embrace that.
Exactly.
Ray Longo and those guys do that too. And I think his game, like he run into trouble if he fights someone like a Charles Oliveira. Probably, but also too, Charles Oliveira is like a willing guard player. Like he will let you sit on top of him.
Kind of a favorable. I mean, Gamrot I've seen him take shots and get hurt and come back like very, very quickly. I mean, he's what? How old is he? He was born at, let's see, he's like 32. So he's right in the end of his prime. So he's, it's going to start fading in a couple of years. But yeah, I really want to see Gamrot Oliveira. I do. I very much want to see that fight. I don't care who, if Oliveira wins the title, maybe that's not the first guy you make for the title defense. But if Oliveira loses, heck yeah. And in a month when he's fighting Makhachev for the belt at UFC 294, yeah, let's see it.
And even someone like him and Justin Gaethje, like, and Gaethje doesn't. I mean, Gaethje deserves like a much bigger fight than that. But Dustin Poirier is Gamrot's one of main training partners. You go scope their Instagram right now, and there are pictures of them hanging out together. And you could see Gamrot's boxing game improve. Like he was landing clean shots. He only has a right hand. He doesn't have a jab, but right cross,
it's more than it used to be. It used to be a means to an end that he would get stoppages. They would be from, I'm on top of you and you're not getting up and I'm going to just keep punching you until the ref's going to go, okay, fine, enough's enough. Or be like, okay, you got me bloody. Or the corner's like, we can't keep him off of him. We'll just let him fight another day. It's that kind of stuff. It's not like, ba-bang, like the big power shots that Dan Ige was landing on Bryce Mitchell or anything.
Yeah. So we will transition into that. Moving on to Bryce Mitchell getting the win over Dan Ige. We scored the fight for Dan Ige. MMA decisions. All three of us at Sherdog scored the fight for Ige. A lot of people scored the fight for Mitchell. I'm not going to die on the hill because it is a very close fight, but I do think Dan Ige won that fight, and I know you do too. So can you tell me why and how you got to your scorecard? And I'm going to do the same thing.
Well, first of all, I want to say I get it. I get why when the second round happens at about a minute 45, a minute 50, Bryce Mitchell's in full mount. And he maintains this position for the remainder of the round. That's almost half of the round that he's not just taking him down or what have you. He's in a dominant position. So I can, even though there were literally, I don't believe, strikes thrown. I need to see the numbers, but I don't recall Mitchell landing any ground and pound when he was in this position. He was more interested in position over offense, and of course that makes sense. But Dan Ige's got a really good get-up game. He was still in full control. And that means that Ige isn't striking him back, isn't offering any offense of his own. And that's a major portion of the round. The first round had something similar, but it was shorter time. And I thought that Ige had done more. Okay. Damage is king when it comes to fights, scoring fights now in this current era of the unified rules. But damage can mean a lot of things. For a while, the term was actually impact because states were kind of concerned, well, damage seems very violent, and they were not as interested in calling it damage. Now, we, the community, are more comfortable with the 3Ds for 10-8s, damage, duration, and dominance. We're not talking about 10-8 round, but my point is damage is now a more acceptable term in terms of effective striking and grappling. Now, effective grappling does not have to be submission attempts that hurt your arm to be damage. Damage can be kind of scored in a way by landing takedowns, establishing dominant positions, reversals, those kinds of things where you are exerting your craft on a fighter. And damage can be as simple as a superficial thing, a little nick, a split in the forehead, whatever that could be. Cuts, they're scored and they matter, but impact also can mean the effect your strikes or grappling, like takedowns, slams, and whatnot, have on your opponent. So when I looked at those, when I was watching the fight in the first and second rounds, I saw Dan Igue's strikes having a more physical effect on Bryce Mitchell to a significant degree. Because yes, some fighters, when they're defensive, they'll move back and they'll shoulder roll, or they'll kind of move with it. So it will look like they're being impacted by the strike more than they are, when they're actually not. They're actually less. Like Bobby Green and Kevin Holland are both guys like that, where they'll roll with the strike and it will be effective in taking a lot of the sting out of it.
Sure.
And sometimes that can work against them because they're moving towards the direction of the strike too. You know, they're like, oh, we got knocked back. Whereas with Dan Ige, when he was landing his strikes, there were, a number of them, not a huge number. Every one of them had a visible effect on Bryce Mitchell that I observed. And when it came to damage, yes, he opened up the cut. It was a cut. It was a cut. Okay. There's nothing, you can't argue. It was a small cut. It doesn't matter. It's superficial, but it was a strike that did enough damage to cause a cut. And the swelling around the eye that happened in the second round, as a result of Ige targeting the spot and whatnot, I thought gave Ige the first and the second rounds. But I am absolutely fine if you had it 29-28 for Mitchell. 30-27, that's a little tough to swallow, because I thought that, especially in the second round, Ige, he landed the heavier shots and the damage was no longer superficial. Spoiler alert, when the doctor comes in to check on your condition, it is not superficial damage anymore.
Yeah. And Bryce was like, and that was like a very like Las Vegas, Nevada doctor, where he was trying to get Collier to get trying to convince Collier that hey, you can't see, right? And then Bryce Mitchell's like, don't come near me, and the doctor was like looking, kind of judging that. It's just the Nevada State Athletic Commission had a tough time on Saturday night. I'll just leave it at that. But yeah, like Bryce Mitchell's also a dude that he wears damage. He's a guy that you can tell he's a pretty comfortable striker when he's on the front foot, but when he's actually having to take damage, we saw this in the Ilya Topuria fight, he will get cracked and you can visibly see his body. And how I judge impactful striking, obviously the cuts, the damage, but also too, is this person getting hit, having to take a back step and reset to then re-engage?
Or they were reeling from the blow. Exactly.
Every time Bryce Mitchell got hit, you'd see him have to reset, bounce his shoulders a little bit, and then he would be able to re-engage with the new exchange. Yeah. He wasn't getting cracked by Ige and then hanging in the pocket and then hitting him with a slick counter. No, he was getting bludgeoned and then having to reset over and over again. Ige's left hook was firing. Bryce Mitchell's body kick looked really good in this fight, though.
Oh yeah.
And his ability to what was it in the second round where he kind of clubbed Ige with a big overhand and then gets the blast takedown straight into full mount. That was beautiful by Bryce.
Oh yeah, it was great. It was intelligent. Because Bryce Mitchell for the longest time was barely a means to an end striker. It was I'm closing the distance. Okay, I got you. And then you go from here, which didn't bode well for a lot of his submission prowesses, because the only submission he got in the octagon was the twister on Matt Sales, as we know. And some of it had to do with the fact that he wasn't hurting or even really seriously impacting his opponent with his strikes to make them think about, stop hitting me, oh crap, my neck. It's not there. It's a ground and pound would really suit Bryce Mitchell well. Elbows,
yeah,
but they weren't really there.
He's built a really impressive game training out of whatever random, Cersei, Arkansas camp. Like he's not
always in Brada. Yeah, it's not.
He's not like at a real.
No.
Like this dude is not at. I mean, yes, it's a real MMA gym, but like he's not at a real MMA gym. Like he really isn't, and he's developing a lot of tools and getting better at MMA at like a I mean, yeah, it's just not a top tier. It's not even a C tier team. So shout out to him for being able to do that. All of his outside of the cage antics were, I'm not the hugest fan, but like, I think it's awesome and funny. Like him screaming freedom with the Bible he stole from his hotel room.
With the
it was hilarious.
With the Gideon stamp Bible. Like he didn't even bring his Bible with him. That made me feel confused to see that when when
he just thought of it.
And then I saw him like, that's not his Bible. Okay, far be it for me to know if fighters bring their Bibles to the cage, but he brought one. And if he's a devoted guy, would he bring his with? I don't know. There are questions and questions. In 2023, it is very difficult to kind of separate yourself from the pack of 650 UFC fighters. Now that you can't wear clothes that have designs on them, or you can't.
Well, he can.
Yeah, that's right. Sure can. or shave things into your chest, or have fun on media day, or do all these kinds of things. It's all about the fighter and their persona, their personality. And Bryce Mitchell has one, but I don't think it's a character. So,
no, it's not.
So while it's working, man, MMA attracts some individuals. That's the nicest thing I'm going to say is that there are some interesting people that love the sport.
Someone with his extremist beliefs, regardless of how extreme it is and whether it's religion or anything else you want to be that extreme about, like you probably shouldn't be getting punched in the head a lot when you're that passionate about something.
I mean, the drill 10-8'd him. That's all I know.
He is a character. People are going to like him. Even if you don't like him, he's going to get the attention that we're giving him right now. So clearly it's doing something right. It worked. Is he a good MMA fighter? Yes. Sure. Like, is he great? Not yet. I don't know if he will be or won't.
I think if he fights Movsar Evloev, we will find out exactly where he is on the pecking order and how far he can go. And I use Evloev because a suffocating grappler who can get takedowns. Oh, he just took me down a few minutes ago, and I'm not even in the same country as him. This is a very effective grappler in Evloev that would really nullify what Mitchell does, or like sometimes there are those levels to this game kind of fights. Like Gunnar Nelson fought Damian Maia, and Nelson is he's renowned for his grappling prowess, and he's for good reason. He's an excellent grappler. But when he fought Damian Maia, none of his tricks worked on Maia, and Maia controlled him for the whole fight. So it's the kind of thing where we're like, okay, he's here, or he's here. But anyway you slice it, we use the term that I forget who introduced it recently. We can say, dang, he's a good fighter. Because he is.
Yeah.
Beat Danny Ige. Yeah.
He's crazy. He's also good.
We're all crazy for loving the sport as much as we do, though.
Shit, yeah, right. But shout out to Bryce and shout out to Ige. I've watched his interview with Bisping and Anthony Smith probably 20 times.
Wow, why?
I laugh harder every time I watch it.
Because I laughed and
so
then I was
funny.
Like, ooh, it's not a bit.
It's not. I couldn't watch the post fight like in the ring where he was like trying to have Danny Ige lead the crowd in prayer.
No thanks.
Like I couldn't watch that. That was
the statements he made. I don't want it. I don't want that part. I think he can keep that.
Here's $5,000. Like, here's $5,000, but I'm gonna say a bunch of crazy shit. So here's the $5,000.
Okay, I could be wrong. Please in the comments if you're recalling this. This is off the cuff. Didn't he do this before? $5,000 to somebody to something
Children's
that's happening.
hospitals.
It was a great gesture. It wasn't just a token thing. It was a really nice, honorable, great thing that he did. And I remember that I'm donating this money. So he's capable of these really great acts and good fights. And then he says words like, kind of like, let him say words on Instagram. And I think people will be like, okay, you're Mike. Thank you.
Yeah. And that's what Bisping did. And shout out to Bisping. He nailed that one. The truck was in his ear telling him to cut it. And he did. They're like, oh, nope, you're done. So speaking of just, I mean, I don't want to call this weirdness, but Michelle Waterson loses really badly to Marina Rodriguez. I was looking for a better segue and I couldn't find one. But can you recall like a worse beating than this? Like the cuff?
Yeah, right off the top of my head, Valentina Shevchenko ruining
Cachoeira
and completely breaking Priscilla Cachoeira. It was one of those beatings that you're never gonna forget. I mean, Priscilla Cachoeira went crazy and started gouging people's eyes out afterwards. So who knows what happened there? But there were a few moments and I was paying very close attention, as many people were, in the corner between rounds. When the part we got to see, when you could see her actually coughing up blood, and you could have been from her nose into bloody nose going to her mouth, so it wasn't necessarily like I'm dying kind of thing, but it was a visual. It was a horrific visual after a really bad 10-8 round, and her husband in her corner, and the rest of the team at Jackson Wink was like, "You got this, kid. Let's go." And then she like literally falls on her face to try and take the fight down the next round. It just gets ruined. It hurts to see, man, because I like Michelle Waterson. I've watched her since she was a 105 champion at Invicta, good for a while. And the sport passes you by. You get older. It happens. The rematch didn't have to happen the way it did. The rematch didn't have to happen, period. It didn't have to. The UFC made it so Rodriguez could get a win over a top 15 opponent that didn't seem to pose a lot of a threat in terms of statistically and based on recent results. So, okay, you can see the matchmaking avenue to say, yeah, she beat Michelle Waterson. Michelle Waterson is still pretty good. But Michelle Waterson is getting no breaks. They have no chill matchmaking Michelle Waterson. I mentioned this in the Sherdog Slack chat. It's a lighter version of Tony Ferguson. That there are no more easy fights for Michelle, even though she never won a title, even challenged for it in the UFC. They are just not letting her fight Mizuki Inoue, Hannah Goldie, Sam Hughes.
Sure.
A woman who, could be on the rise, that could need that next fight, but like Luana Pinheiro was kind of that, but we already knew Luana Pinheiro was pretty darn good otherwise.
It's super weird too, because she's managed by the same people that are like shareholders in the UFC. Like she's managed by that same Endeavor or whatever. You probably know the name. So like you would think that you want your, because as a manager, you accrue part of a fight purse. Like, but also if you're a manager and you also are a partial owner in UFC, you might also say, F my client, I'm going to use, because I get more money, if Marina had, like, it's super shady. And if you are managed by the person that also, owns the company that you work for, this should probably be like a pretty big red flag. Because Michelle Waterson shouldn't have taken this fight. There, like after the Amanda Lemos fight, like she should have been way down. You have to be able to look at the bigger picture. Age, you're a parent. What are your chances of really contending? Why are you fighting contenders? Why aren't you just fighting fun fights somewhere shoved on a fight night card? Like this could have been easily, any meddling 115er off of Contender Series, like someone like it could have been the Jamie Pickett version of women's 115. Fine. Like, and That makes all the sense. The Nevada State Athletic Commission failed her. The doctors failed her. Her corner failed her. The ref failed her. MMA fighters aren't going to quit. Even someone like Michelle Waterson, they're not going to stop fighting. They fucked that one up.
Michelle Waterson is arguably the least to blame here because she's a fighter and she's a former champion in a major organization. At the time, Invicta was a major organization. Now we're not talking about that, but she's a winning mentality with an excellent coach and team of champions. Like, say what you want about Jackson Wink in 2023 compared to what he used to be. It's Jackson Winklejohn. You have the mentality of, I'm going to win this fight. I want it back. Of course she did. If Michelle Waterson-Gomez did not believe she could win this fight, she wouldn't have taken it. And I think that, and she as a fighter, I mean, obviously fighters, we need to normalize saying mate, but corner stoppages need to happen. And that was a corner stoppage that didn't happen. And it's unfortunate. I hope that she didn't suffer any permanent damage, but the optics of that one just were not pleasant.
When you have, and I've heard this a couple times, in my time watching the sport, where a fighter goes to their corner and they're wheezing like this, and you can hear like liquid in their chest because it's blood.
Right.
And the doctors came in to look at, like, the ref called the doctor in, and it's like, she's just bleeding a lot everywhere. He didn't even look at like one. There wasn't one cut to look at.
Well, they cleaned it and they said, okay, it's not going into her eye. And
her nose is just pouring coagulated blood.
That's all right.
Where like
bloody noses are no big deal. Like I'm sure if I got hit with a Frisbee, my nose would start spraying blood, and I'm fine.
It was just, she's and if your name is the Karate Hottie and you have to rely and takedowns are your game, you're a striker and you have to win this fight with takedowns.
No, that's not fair. She's been the wrestling hottie for a good part of a decade now. Her best game is her wrestling. Her clinch, her body lock, or that kind of work like that. It worked. That was the thing. It worked on Marina Rodriguez for a while until it didn't, and then things went horribly, horribly wrong. But it worked. That was the confidence boost that Michelle Waterson-Gomez needed. I can take down and handle for a while a top 8 woman. I'm not done. So let's see her in 4 months against. Hold on. Let's see the way the UFC matchmaked her. She lost to Luana Pinheiro, and they gave her a higher ranked fighter, Marina Rodriguez, which means they're going to make her fight Jessica Andrade.
Isn't she matched up against someone that she's going to lose to right now?
Yes, but maybe there you go. Break the losing streak. Someone's got to win.
She should have been fighting like Karolina Kowalkiewicz.
Yes, I agree. Or Lupe Godinez, or fight Angela Hill again, or I know
it's fucking nuts. Marina Rodriguez, she has a very good clinch game. She's still an extremely awkward puncher. Like, her punching mechanics, she doesn't know how to actually line up and throw like an elbow tuck straight punch. Like, she doesn't, and
no, she's Muay Thai. She's not going to get that. You're never going to see that from her.
And it's so weird because like in MMA in 2023, like, we still don't have people that actually know how to operate, have an actually operating boxing game. And especially here at women's 115, Marina Rodriguez looked good. She's a girl. I did have a new discovery about her. I did always think her wrestling is absolutely terrible, but I think she actually invites women to get double underhooks and allows entries to happen because she knows her clinch is so venomous.
It's those elbows, man. Those elbows and those knees.
Michelle Waterson looked like she saw a ghost 5 times in this fight when she was eating those knees against the cage. Marina Rodriguez would kind of just pull her down, switch her over, and then during the switch, pushing her up against the cage, fucking just crushing her ribs. And I want to ask you this before we cap the show off. We're talking about ONE FC. Marina Rodriguez probably shouldn't be an MMA fighter. She should be a 4-ounce Muay Thai fighter, over there.
I'd watch the hell out of it. That would suit her better. No takedown to worry about. Yeah.
Yeah.
She'd be a champion.
I really do like her, and like her fighting like all those like Stamp and all those
Let her
chicks.
fight
Like
Stamp, yeah. Zhang, oh yeah, let's do it.
it'd be so cool, you know, and she wouldn't have you wouldn't have to worry about takedowns. She could just go and get in the clinch with someone and just get like super nasty.
Done. Make the trade, baby.
Like after I was thinking, I'm like, holy shit, Marina Rodriguez, it would be really fun to watch her in Muay Thai because like you can tell she loves Muay Thai. Dude, thank you so much for coming on. That's the show. Tell everyone where they can find you.
Sherdog. Always the Sherdog. Everywhere. Yes. Sherdog, 100 years, Sherdog. Sherdog.com.
Sherdog to the death. Thank you guys. Check the kick. We're only giving you guys a recap of the weekend. We kind of bled it out really long, so thank you, Jay. Nothing coming up next weekend. Enjoy the break, everyone.
Hold up your Bible and say freedom, because we are off from MMA other than one championship in PFL Europe this weekend.
Yes, sir. Thank you, man.